everyone, welcome to P2 Plays. Well, the BT7 meta is nearly here, so it's time to give my predictions on what I think the best decks of the format are going to be. Before we do that, make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notified when my videos go live for you. Make sure to come check me out live on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and follow my favorite shop, P2 Collectibles and Consignments, for all your card gaming and consignment needs. Now let's get into the tier list. Tier 1 should be self-explanatory. These are the best decks of the format. If you go into any major tournaments throughout the BT7 meta, these are the decks you should expect. These are the decks that are going to rule the format. These are the decks you need to know how to defeat. These are the decks you're going to have to side against. These are decks that are going to be the most representative. I think you get the idea. These are the best decks of the format. Tier 2 decks are decks that lost something or didn't get enough power from BT7. These decks can still take very much games. They can still end up at top tables, and you should still fully understand how to play these decks and beat these decks. Tier 3, these are decks that may take a couple games. They'll basically struggle through the meta. Locals is a very interesting one I came up with. I wanted to take decks that I think are still tier 3, but you're not going to take to any tournaments. You're not going to take this tier 3 deck to any tournaments because you know for a fact maybe you'll get a game or two, but that's about it. But if you want to take it to a local scene and have some fun with, I think that's where you should take these decks. They're local level decks, and that's really what makes them fun. So the rogue decks are the decks that people are sleeping on, the decks that no one thinks will take any top tables in it, and then they'll snap their fingers and suddenly they're at a top table. So I think these are the choices that can sneak themselves up into top tables without anyone even realizing it. So to start, we're going to look at the BT6 EX1 decks, then we'll go into the set 7 decks, and then we'll go into any miscellaneous decks I just want to talk about. The decks of the BT6 EX format are Lilithmon Loop, Lord Nightmon, Security Control, Jesmon, On the Bravery, On the Friendship, Musketeer, Diaboromon. These are the decks that ruled the BT6 EX format that were represented in the Nationals event. So first we have Lilithmon Loop. Now it did take a hit with losing Mega Digimon Fusion on the ban list, but it still has win rate 60%, so you can still go into your resort plays. But now that it is Eismon and Eismon Scatter mode and Calling from the Darkness, you can now loop Cerberusmon and Cerberusmon Werewolf mode very well. So this deck is still very lethal to make out multiple attackers that can still swing at your security, ripping it apart. So this is well deserved for its tier 1 spot. Now, even though it's a great deck, I think there's going to be that many people representing it because it takes a high level of skill to run this deck, and you need to be a great pilot to use it. So if you see the loop, congratulations, you can do the loop and you'll be perfectly fine. But high level pilots will be able to play through the bricks, play through how to get to the loop if you don't see it. So that's the reason why I think it won't be as highly represented, because it's high ceiling of play, but it's still a very deadly deck in this format. Next, we have Lord Nightmon. Funny enough, made a resurgence, I think, late in the BT6 EX1 format, but extremely dangerous in the BT7 era. It's getting Electric Rush. It's getting the Pulsemon with an Inheritable to gain 2 memory if you're at 3 security when you attack. It's going to be able to spam out a bunch of dudes because of Electric Rush. The Angelwomon's going to be even better now. Not mentioning you now have the hybrid package in here. So yes, Lord Nightmon is a very dangerous deck now. And without a doubt, you need to be very cautious of this deck, because if you let this deck go off, it's just going to mass the board on you and just swing and kill you. Next up is Security Control. Yes, folks, it is a tier 3 deck. It is really sad. It's tier 3 down here now. Its rule format since it first truly appeared in set 4. That's when the first great incarnations of it appeared, and then it started ruling right after that, always being a tier 1 deck. Now, the issue with Security Control is that when you play all these high-cost options and high-cost Digimon that recover you, my opponent's just playing these tamers out and maybe moving one tamer up at a time to attack my security. Or when I'm going to use these option cards, my Wyvern's Breath, my Ultimate Flares, any of the other option cards I really like, because I can't use them on a tamer. Sure, I can go to Azort Defeat, and he's a big guy that my opponent had to deal with, but the problem is either I'd have to hardcast him or hope he's in my security and comes out on it. To even use his effect, I'd have to play something purple to Digivolve over him so I can pop a tamer. Security Control is not great in this format because you don't want to be giving your opponent a whole chunk of memory by playing one option card, or a whole chunk of memory by playing a single Digimon, because then that your opponent's just going to set up tamers or bring up a tamer and just starts triggering all their effects, because you're a deck that's running all these option cards to kill stuff when they're just swinging one Digimon at a time to chip damage off your security. What do they care? It hurts. I love it. Now, I know there's going to be people who are going to rep this deck to the end of time, but yeah, it's a little sad, but it's here. Tier 3. Jesmon, still tier 1. It's still here, but Jesmon still is having the same problem. Now we're shoving in this Awakened stuff in this new Huckmon. Now you're putting even more cards in this must-have in the deck. Cards to play, so you still have a great chance to brick or not see any cards for quite some time, but still tier 1 because it's still got Blitz Omnimon. It can still swing twice with Savior Huckmon and tear through security like no one's business. This deck is still very, very dangerous, so do be very cautious. Still a great deck to play in this format. format. Next, we have Bond the Bravery. He's tier 3 as well. Again, he's kind of got same issue as security control. His effects states that you have to kill something on your opponent's side, 13k or less DP Digimon on your opponent's side of the field to trash one of your opponent's security and then go in for his check, which is really nice. But the problem is, again, we're setting up tamers. You can't pop a tamer. And then also the problem is I've always had with Bond the Bravery is his 2-cost security is never felt as good as paying the 2 for Bond the Friendship. So I still think he's a really good level 7. I just don't think the deck is really good because now that we're having this aggressive red hybrid deck that can play the promo Greymon in it, there's nothing really special about this deck anymore. It's literally being outpaced by now this more aggressive red deck, and that is red hybrid. So yes, it is tier 3. I still like the level 7 though. I think he's really cool. Bond the Friendship, a Tyrant, a BT6 EX1 format, is now tier 2. Having Ice Wall go to 1 for the deck is not great. It basically sat behind Ice Wall to set so it can set up for its turns. Now, funny enough, you can put the stun engine in here and it actually is pretty good. You could play a stun on the Friendship deck, basically just stunning out your opponent until you get your Bond the Friendship play going. But the problem is, again, now you're pitching out 2 security to do maybe your 3 swings. In the BT6 EX1 format, that was perfectly fine. But now the problem is, since my opponent's setting up so many tamers now and chip damaging me, it's not real great, especially when Blue Hybrid can just stun all of its rookies. You can get stun locked off Blue Hybrid. You don't even have a good matchup against Red Hybrid, because if they make the Ancient Greymon in turn 2 swing in and just tear through half your security, you're pretty much done, because you won't be going to a Bond of Friendship. You still must see a mat and then a Bond of Friendship to even use this deck to its full capacity. So it's a tier 2 deck. 3 Musketeers. There may now be an anti-Musketeer and Avenge Kid, but it's still tier 2. It did get a buff with Eismon Scatter Mode. I mean, every purple deck did, but it's still very much linear. Again, it struggles with the fact that we're putting tamers on the field. Once you see Nailbone, this deck can go off and build nice wide boards of Digimon. And then you can play Bielstarmon so that you can use it again. But the problem is, until you see the Nailbone, this deck struggles. So tier 2, I still think it's a very good deck. Then we have who I think is really the top of tier 2, Diaboromon. This deck is still nasty. This deck got so much support in EX1. The Diaboromon deck is still really good. Again, it struggles with the fact that it needs to set up. It needs to see its Errata Sonatas. It needs to see this Diaboromon. It needs to see a bunch of token generating. So basically, it just spams the board. That's what it needs. And that's just a problem. It's a setup style deck, so if it doesn't see the setup pieces it needs, it's going to have a problem. But if it does get set up, this deck can go off and it's going to be a nightmare. Now let's talk about the BT7 decks. That being Red Hybrid, Blue Hybrid Azulongmon, Blue Hybrid with Magna Garurumon, Yellow Hybrid, Shine Hybrid, X Antibody, Purple Hybrid, and finally Green Hybrid. So first up, Red Hybrid, a very powerful, aggressive deck. Ancient Greymon, Emperor Greymon, and Susanamon just make this deck extremely, extremely aggressive. Ancient Greymon coming out on your turn 2 to just tear apart your opponent's security. Emperor Greymon with its Blitz effect over Takuya to melee win the game. Susanamon, if you need him as just an extender to kill. The promo Greymon can be played in here with the Lightning Joust to buff it and attack with a bunch of security checks. This is a really strong red aggressive style deck and should be respected as a tier 1 deck. Now, if you were going to remove the Ancient Greymons and just play Emperor Greymon with Susanamon, it'd be down here. I think you need the Ancient Greymons to really make this deck a tier 1 contender. Then we have the 2 different variants of Blue. Blue Hybrid did take a good chunk of hit. It lost Mega Digimon Fusion and it had Ice Wall go down to 1. So it did lose a little bit of that synergy, but that does not mean these decks are not tier 1. The 2 different variants I believe that are tier 1 contenders, Azulongmon Blue Hybrid and Magna Garurumon Blue Hybrid. Both these decks playing the stun package, Kami, Kumamon, and Kurakakumon. So the Azulongmon idea here is that you'll use the stun package to continually remove sources from your opponent's Digimon, stunning them, and then you'll play a Zulongmon as your main mega, maybe Magna Garurumon as a backup mega, but using a Zulongmon as your main mega, basically bringing him down, removing any other sources, gaining that memory, and then going for all those checks. And of course, having that little chip damage you've been doing with the Karakakumon. So that is a very viable deck. Magna Garurumon, on the hand, is more about using the Magna Garurumon to control the board, using its effect to spin the exact level hybrid back to your hand to send that exact level Digimon back to your opponent's hand, being able to do that, and then of course following up with his Zanamon as the win condition. So both these decks are very strong contenders. It would really matter, do you like a Zulongmon better or do you like Magna Garurumon better? Because you can play both of them together. You could play Magna Garurumon as your main mega and then a Zulongmon as a backup mega, or you could play a Zulongmon as your main mega and then Magna Garurumon as a backup mega. You can also put it in the EX collection, Gomamon, Ikakumon, Zudomon, even the new Vikemon that we're getting in set 7. So there's a lot of stuff you can build around these decks to really make them very interesting. So without a doubt, a very interesting deck strategy here with Blue Hybrid. Yellow Hybrid has 3 different ways it can be built, because I consider Lord Nightmon its own deck. It's probably just maybe going to use a small bit of the Yellow Hybrid package. So first up, we'll talk about the 2 Yellow Hybrid builds. You got pure Yellow Hybrid and Yellow Hybrid with the purple eggs, Digimon, and the option. Again, the option stating that it kills everything that's level 5 or lower for every tamer or hybrid Digimon you have on the field. Now, both decks are very viable. Both decks are really good. It just matters, do you want to play the purple option card that can nuke fields, or would you rather be a more heavy yellow recovery package deck? Shine Hybrid is a very interesting deck. So Shine Greymon coming back to the meta is very interesting, because the last time he was actually in the meta was when he first came out in Special Booster 1.5. He really took the meta by storm. It's now interesting to see him coming back. What you do here is you're going to still play the same hybrid engine. You're still going to use Jet Sylphimon to recover the Zoes and stuff. But what you're doing is you're building a mass board of Tamer, so that way you then go to your Shine play, just nuke the board. The problem with him, I see, is that you have to hope everything goes to your side. He's not as consistent on his kill engine as I believe these 2 decks are, just more consistent of like recovering and installing out your opponent and chip damaging. You need to have the Tamers all set up perfectly. You need to see him in hand. You want to see as many Tamers you can on the field so you can maximize his effect. I still think he's a strong contender for the format, so don't go sleeping on Shine Hybrid. X anybody, it's a locals level deck. Just go have some fun with it. In my opinion, it just doesn't have enough in this set. It's very interesting. There's just not enough X anybody coming out of set 7 to really make this deck feel good. Now, set 8, I think maybe it will be pushed up to maybe tier 2, tier 3. So yeah, so as of right now, take it to your locals, have some fun. So this one's a little interesting because I'm struggle to figure out where I want to put this. I think it's tier 2. I don't think it's tier 3. Cherubmon, purple hybrid Cherubmon is very interesting. Again, it's a nice deck, but it has to have a setup. You need to have the Pinata Cherubmon fill up with everything in your trash. Then you need to pop it and bring everything out. But you need to have enough Tamers that you get enough advantage to bring enough stuff out of your trash to do it. And again, you need to see a bunch of stuff specifically going to your trash so you can do this play. I think it's a tier 2 deck because if everything goes right for you in your setup, ooh man, pop the balloon and suddenly dudes are all over the field and you've massed a huge board presence. Again, the Bushiagumon, the Lucamon level 3. You can play the Lucamon level 5 in here as well, the new option card. You can play the Tamer package. There's still a lot you can do in this deck. The problem is the Cherubmon Pinata needs to be filled correct. Otherwise, it's pretty much deck's not going to do what you want it to do. Now we have Green Hybrid. This is very interesting. If you're going to play pure Green Hybrid, tier 2 at best. There's a lot of good cards in it. It's a very strong deck. There's a lot of good cards in it, but it's tier 2. But there's a rumor out there playing the Green Hybrids with a red package. So you play the red babies so you can play a bunch of red kill cards. That is a really strong deck because you can just start hitting stuff off the field with really good red destruction option cards and then follow it up with all your green plays to stun, suspend, swing over, just control the board. So basically this is a very good control style deck to play with both sides. I think that's really the best deck to play with Green Hybrid. So let's talk about a few more set 7 decks. First, Machine Dramon, a locals at best. Sure, you can make the Chaos Dramon over the Machine Dramon and maybe play out another Machine Dramon. Congratulations, you made 2 dudes, 2 big stacks. When all my decks are going to play chip damaging, punch you in the face, it's not going to be very helpful. So I think it's a local level deck. I think Chaos Dramon helps Machine Dramon, and I think if we can get more support for it, I think it could be a really cool deck. Other set 7 decks, we have King Waymon with Metal Garurumon. Another really cool deck that I think is a really fun deck to take to your locals. Waymon, Metal Garurumon, King Waymon are just really fun to play around with. All this ability to take stuff out of your sources and play them down on the field. Really interesting deck. I still think it's a very local level deck. Skull Knight D Brigade. This is also an interesting one. I'm going to consider tier 3. I don't think it's tier 2. I'll have to see how it plays, really feel, but I'm going to say tier 3 to be safe. I don't think it's a local level. I think it could go to a tournament and take some games. It may even get a top table, so it could be roguish at most. D Brigade's always had this weird roguish style about it. I think it's a really cool deck idea. I think it's tier 3. I don't think it's going to be taking any meta by storm. And then the only last deck that got buffed up from BT7 is Eosmon. No, this is a local level deck. Go have fun, kids. Put your 50 Eosmon, level 5 Eosmon into your deck and go crazy. Now, the last of these decks are decks I just wanted to talk about. So first up, Black Blockers. This is very interesting interesting. I'm going to consider it a tier 3 deck. A lot of people hyped up this deck when BT6 first launched. Then it did nothing. It just disappeared into the ether of BT6. It's still very good because Craniumon still can stop all destruction effects from happening to any blockers. It's getting a few more cards. Now it's getting its hybrid engine. So I still think it's a very interesting deck. Genkumon's still a great card. Iron Fist Onslaught's still a great card. Alphamon's still a great card. But it's tier 3. BT7 did not give it anything new to really give it more power. Mastamon is very interesting. I'm going to consider this Mastamon Dynasmon. You can even put Kazuchimon in here, the new level 6 from BT7. This is an interesting deck that may show up. In my opinion, it's very interesting because Dynasmon recovers. You're always going to be sitting at 3 thanks to Dynasmon. Mastamon is a good just trash to play something out, a level 4 or lower purple or yellow Digimon from your trash. Kazuchimon is now just heals you up. Now you have the Pulsemon, Electric Rush. There's so much yellow cards that are coming from BT7 that really help Mastamon Dynasmon out. So I'm going to consider this a deck on tier 2. You could probably do Mastamon and then a split between Dynasmon and Kazuchimon and then everything else be just support. So yeah, I think it's a really cool deck. I do want to kind of try it out. I don't know if I'll take it in any big name tournaments because let me tell you, I'm going to take one of these decks up here to a big name tournament, but really cool deck nonetheless. Our good friend Mr. Shoutmon. Sadly, what Shoutmon did in aggression, Red Hybrid does way better now. Red Hybrid is now the aggression deck to play. Shoutmon just lost its aggressiveness. I think Red Hybrid does it much better. Black Toolbox, I'm going to call it Rogue. This deck always seems to come out of the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of a tournament scene or regional season. It's just going to pop out of the middle of nowhere and say, surprise, I'm back. I don't know if it got anything good out of BT7 to do it, but I think pilots who've played this deck before will find ways to play Black Toolbox. I consider the Rogue deck, be cautious on sleeping on this deck because it may pop out of the middle of nowhere. If you don't know how to fight this deck, it may take the round off you. Titanmon, I'm going to consider Titanmon tier 2. He's getting Nidhogg, getting Eismon Scatter Mode, Call from Darkness. He's getting a lot of good support, and he's still a very dangerous card. He's still getting an extra security attack when you pitch a card out of your hand. He's still bringing a Digimon out of your trash. He's still getting a buff, so you can still play the promotes off him. You can play the Eismons off him. He's still a very dangerous card. My opinion, you got to keep an eye on for this guy. I still think Lilithmon Loop is going to be the purple deck of the format, but this guy right here, this is not a bad card because especially now with the hybrids. Another couple rogues, the tribals. Greymon Tribal and Gurumon Tribal got a few more cards to really play off of. Really great. They both got, this one got the Metal Gurumon, got another War Greymon. This got another Gurumon and another Metal Gurumon. So without a doubt, these cards got buffed in EX1. They're getting a little buff here and the BT7 meta. Still really good card. Without a doubt, tier 3 for good old Imperial Jamon. Yes, he got some good buff cards from EX, but he didn't show up. I don't think they helped him. So I would say right now, even though it's tier 3 deck, pick up your Imperial Jamon support right now, especially you're going to play it in set 8. This one is interesting. Angel Tribal. You could put a Phenomon in here because she is an angel. You could put the new Seraphimon in here. It got a couple things from EX1 that were really good. I'm not sure if I call it a locals deck. I don't know if I could call it tier 3. I'm going to consider it rogue because I think it could appear and take some games and maybe even appear in a top table without anyone even realizing what is that. So maybe it's my bias because I actually like a lot of the Angel Digimon and I like a lot of the card support it got. Angel Tribal, keep an eye out for it. Mayotasmon, play it at your locals. He's not very good right now. Even with all the support he got out of EX1, he didn't do anything. But do be cautious. Set 8, he gets a whole bunch more support. He becomes a good threat. And Rookie Rush. This one disappeared, I think, throughout the BT6 EX1 format. It just kind of disappeared and it's just not going to be able to handle any of these top decks. Anyways, that is my tier list for the BT7 meta. Do let me know down in the comments, which decks are you excited to play? Let me tell you, I have a lot of excitement for a lot of these decks to play. Tell me your predictions. Who do you think is going to be the top decks of the BT7 meta? Who's going to rule it all? You tell me down in the comments. Until next time, we'll see you here on P2 Plays.